Hi guys, and welcome to another tutorial. So this is a request from user nickname Surname. I don't think that that really is his nickname or his surname, but there we are. He wanted me to create a particle system for splats that I assume that he wanted them to leave decals on the floor. He wasn't too descriptive, but what I've gone ahead and made is a system. I've just got it bound to left mouse click right now so that he'll spurt some blood and then he'll leave it on the floor wherever the particles land. So there we are. Okay, so this is what we're going to put together right now. As you can see, they work really nicely. They start to glow eventually though, because they have to be an emissive because it's using decal. And then this has all just been thrown together now. It's in my tutorial folder, as you can see. So what I'm going to really rapidly do is just delete everything. Well, so I'll save it all first, just in case, because you never know how these things are going to go. Goodbye. There we go. We'll compile that. There goes the blueprint. No more bleeding, and we're just going to get rid of all this. But, well, we'll keep the splatters. I need the splatters. Goodbye. There we are. Right, so what we're going to be using is something like this, which is just a sprite sheet I've thrown together using splatters that I found on the internet. Now, here you can see I've divided everything into exact squares and made sure that each splat is within a square, because each one of these squares represents one frame, and I believe this is 256 here, 256, 256, 256, 256, 256. So this is a 1024 texture in total. Let's head back in, and it's just imported in. There we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the particle material. So material splatters underscore m. Let's open this up. Now we are going to set this to a. We're going to leave it default lit actually, but we're still going to use a translucent material. The reason I'm leaving this as default lit is because we're not going to want this to really glow as the blood is flying out of a victim. So I'm going to select these splatters, and now I'm going to right click because we're going to need a particle sub UV node. There we go, and now we're just going to need a particle color node so we can control this. Hold M and left click, and then we will combine the alpha with the texture, place this into the opacity, and the color into base color. And now we have our splatters laid out. Excuse me. We'll apply this really quick, and we shall save that. There we go. Alright, next we're going to make another material. This is going to be the splatters underscore decal underscore m. So we're going to open this up. Now we're going to go over here and in the material domain change this to a default decal. Change the blend mode to translucent. It has to be for a decal. Next we are going to give this a base color, so I'm going to hold 3 for 3 vector and left click. I'm going to plug this into the base color and the opacity. Now I'll show you why we're going to, not the opacity rather, stupid, emissive color. I'll show you why I'm using emissive as well afterwards. The color, I'm not sure if this is the right color. Yes, that's the right color that I'm using. So there we are. We'll save that as the color. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we need a texture object. It has to be a texture object for this to work, and we're going to plug the splats in there. Now we're going to use a sub UV function. We're going to plug this into the texture, which is why it needed to be a texture object, because a regular Boink texture sample will not plug in. You see, it only works with a 2D texture object. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hold 2 and left click for 2 vector, and we're going to plug this into the sub images, and what we're doing here is we're telling the sub UV function how many frames this is made up of. Now, if we go in here, I haven't filled this. I could put more. I could put 4 more blobs in. So essentially, what I've got is a 3x4, but the image itself is 4x4, even though we've got blank frames. So we need to make sure that this is set to 4, 4. There we are. And now, to make sure that we can pick a particular one of these, because at any one point we're only going to want one of these for our decal, we're going to hold we're going to hold S and left click for a scalar, plug this into frame, we're going to call the scalar parameter frame, and we're just going to leave that set to 0, and then we're going to plug the RGB, because I don't have this with an alpha, this is just an RGB, black and white, we're going to plug that into the opacity, and we should get the very first splat on the list. Now if I change this to 1, I'll get the second splat on the list. There we are. So we can see it. If we open this up, there it is. Second splat, second splat. Now, the reason 1 gets the second splat is because the counters always start at 0. So we're going to apply this, and we're going to now, oh yes, the normal map, because without a normal map these look quite flat on the floor. So I'm going to hold T for a texture sample, and I'm going to use my trusty Surname. There it is. I'm going to hold a U for a text coordinate and left click. I'm going to set this to 2 on the U and the V and plug this into the normal. And now when this gives us a very quick compile, we'll be able to see some of this nice blobbiness here. It's very faint, but it really makes a difference once these are on the ground. I'm going to apply that. And now we shall save. Now, the reason that we plugged this into the emissive color as well is while we're using a normal map, for whatever reason, the decals become almost black, so they weren't really visible without the emissive color. Like if I turn off the emissive color now, because of the translucency, it's very, very faint anyway, you see? And with the normal map added, it just got darker, but no brighter in color, so the color sample has to go into the emissive color as well. So we'll quickly apply that. Now we're going to right click and make a particle system. We're going to call this Splatter _P. You see a pattern. We're going to open this up, and in the required we're going to grab the Splatter _M. We don't want the decal. Let's let this load its sexy self in. Here it comes. It's going to look weird because we're going to get every single frame at once. Come on. You can do it. Did I not plug this in? Oh, I did. It's just taken forever to compile. It's just really not loving me. Okay. Well, there they are in all their glory. Now, what we need to do in the required is we're going to scroll down and we're going to set emitter loops to just 1. We don't want this to loop infinitely, so we only want it to happen once. We're going to scroll down a little bit more and you'll find sub UV. We're going to change the interpolation method to random, and we're going to tell it, as we did before, that we have 4 horizontal images and 4 vertical images. Okay, now we're only getting 1 frame come, but we'll fix that soon. So in the spawn, we're going to set the constant to 0 because we're not going to use that. We're going to go to burst, and in burst this we're going to add an element, and in the count we're going to add 10. So now it'll fling 10 particles at once. Their lifetime we're going to set to 0, 0, so they're infinite. Goodbye. You'll see. Trust me. The size we're going to leave the maximum at 15, but 25, but the minimums we're changing to 15 across the board. Their initial velocity, this is where it's going to start to get fun. We're going to set to 400, 400, 0, minus 400, minus 400, minus 20. So we get a little bit of downfall, and they're spraying out quite far, you can see. So next up, we're going to just quickly do the color of a life. We're going to change this to a constant, and in the R, we're just going to put 0.39 red, and leave the rest as is. There they are. Goodbye, little particles. You poor, poor souls. Next, we're going to right click and we're going to go to sub UV and we're going to get a sub image index. Now this is what's going to let us change the frames. We're going to start with a 0, 0 in the 0 point, and then in the 1 point we're going to go 1, and then in the out value we're going to go 11. And that should give us frames 1 to 12, which counter-wise is 0 to 11. So we'll quickly save that. Next we're going to right click and we're going to give acceleration, and we're going to give constant acceleration, and on the Z we're going to put minus 600. So now these fall down. If we quickly restart that, that's where they're spawning. Let's bring the bounce box up so that, oh no, they're going away. Need to see where they're, there they are. So there you can see them, they're falling down very, very quick. I mean, it's quite dark in here, so you might not be able to see it. Next we're going to give some collision, actor collision, and we're just going to leave this set to kill. And the very final thing we're going to do is we're going to right click and we are going to give event generator. And now in the event generator we need to give it an event. The type we're going to set to collision, and I'm just going to give this a custom name of splat. Okay, this will let us create a custom event in a blueprint later on using this particle system. So that's the particles sorted. Now if you decide you want these to move a little bit quicker or a little bit slower, that's perfectly fine. You can change the velocities and the constant acceleration to whatever you need, but this is just the example that I'm giving. So we've made all the stuff that we need to actually get this to look right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the blueprint. So we're going to open up the level blueprint, and I'm going to right click and on mouse left, or just left mouse button. I always forget the exact wording, but sometimes you can just kind of wing it and it works. Hue. So on left click, spawn emitter at location. I'm going to go back to the level, I'm going to get the guy, I'm going to create a reference to him, then from him I'm going to get mesh, and I'm going to quickly go into the emitter here, and I'm going to set this to our splat, so splatter P, splatter P. Oh no, we're not spawning emitter at location. My mistake. That's what we're doing with the decals afterwards. We're attaching spawn emitter attached. There we are. Now plug the mesh into the component. Set the template here to the splatter. I'm getting ahead of myself. I was ready to spawn some decals. Now this will spawn them directly on the floor, so we're just going to raise this up. So in the Z we're going to put 150 in the location, and this will make sure that they spawn quite high. So if we quickly go into the level, if we left click, oh no, it's flying from his neck. Okay, so that's working. We're going to open the level blueprint again. Next we are going to drag out from the return value, and we're going to bind event on particle collide. You can see it here, bind event on particle collide, and we'll get this really nice node here. This has to come out of the return value here. Okay, now plug this in. Now what we're going to do is from event here we're going to click and drag, and we're going to type custom event, and we can add a custom event, and that will link these together. So basically now whenever this fires, it will make sure that this happens. We're going to call this on collide event. Now what we're going to do with this is we're going to drag out of here, and we're going to create dynamic material instance. We're going to set this to our splatter decal underscore m. From the return value, set scalar parameter value. Parameter name, I believe we called it frame. Now what we need to do is we want to get a random integer. Now you can use a floating range, but I prefer to use an integer because we're going to get a whole number. We're going to set the max to 11. We're going to plug this into the value, and it will automatically convert this from int to float, so you don't have to worry about that. It will do that on its own. Now from here we're going to spawn decal at location. The decal material we're actually going to drag from the create dynamic material instance and plug this in. So next, from the onCollide event, drag from location and place this into the location. From normal, we're going to drag out, and what we're going to do is we're going to rotation from X vector. And we're going to plug this in. Now, what this does is it's going to check the X vector of any object's normal. So a normal is a point. It's an invisible point that you can't see that's pointing outwards from an object that determines which way a face is facing. So which axis a face is facing towards or away from. So this is going to get that, and then it's going to rotate spawn to decal based on the object that it's hit. So it's going to check the normal of the object it hits, and then it's going to say, okay, the object's facing this way. This means that the decal has to face this way, and it will do that for you. So now we need to give these a lifespan. I'm going to give them a lifespan of 20, and in decal size I'm going to random float. Oops, I don't want just random float, I want a random float in range, and I'm going to say between 20 and 50. I'm just going to plug this straight into decal size, and that will convert the float to a vector, so we get exactly the same number on all three axes there. And now that should, he says optimistically, be working. So if we click, there we are. Now when our particles hit the floor, they spawn some decals. Yeah! So there we have it. Now you're probably not going to want this bound to a left click, which is what I've done here. This is just for the example. So just change the left click to any event that you want in which the player will bleed. So say you've got a trap, the player touches the trap, so on collide with trap, bleh, blood. So there we have it. Sparticles? Yeah, some sparticles. I need to sleep. Some particles that spawn from the player that you can put based on hit, and when they hit the floor, they spawn some decals. So, I hope that's helpful for you guys, and that some of you guys can use this. You can see the normals on the splatters on the floor. They're nice. Aren't they nice? Look at that. Yeah. Oh, baby. So there you have it, guys. I hope this is useful for you. This, as I say, was a request video. So if anybody does have a request, please just get in touch, because I'm happy to do this. I find it fun. So I'll see you guys next time.